Do you take time out of your busy life to give back? Is there a cause or organization that brings you joy when you help out and give your time freely to? Welcome to Be a Better Person. Today, we're going to talk about volunteering and some of the reasons why you volunteer and some of the organizations that you volunteer for. So first of all, I just think that it's awesome if you can volunteer to a cause, your community, the neighbors, taking the trash can in from the next door neighbors, just because they're elderly, raking some leaves in somebody's yard just because you can help out, and not because of how anybody's going to feel about you or view about you, but because it makes you feel good. I remember I started at a very young age. Can't really remember how I got involved and don't really remember a lot about it. I remember it was for Easter seals, and I'm going to assume that it had something to do with the church I was going to. But yeah, I do remember at 7 or 8 years old going around knocking door to door, and I just remember collecting money and giving out little stamp things. Like I said, very vague at a young age, but I do remember volunteering for that. I remember that I did help several times just elderly people carry their groceries out to their car, and I had a little lawn mowing thing that I did for a couple summers when I lived in Florida, and there were some of the people when it was people whose husband was gone or whatever, they didn't have a lawnmower, that I did it really, really cheap, just to kind of help out. And then, so like I said, growing up, just because even though I was poor and everything growing up, once I kind of gotten into my first career, I just really felt blessed. And again, I wanted to be part of a community, and I wanted to kind of make sure that I always gave back. So I always volunteered. I didn't care how or what. So I did a lot of things for just some organizations. Things that had regular meetings, JC's, Lions, Kiwanis, Habitat for Humanity. I did some other things that were just small. Manistee had a thing called Big Day of Serving, and so for I don't remember how many years volunteered for that. It was just a one-day thing that you went and everybody went together, and they had a bunch of projects lined up, and people did. Like I said, I volunteered several times at my children's school for PTO, just different events that they had. Also spelling bees, I came to be a judge. I remember there was a couple things when I worked for the newspaper that I went to be a judge for different cooking contests, come up with the best recipe, chili making contests. I also did some even though I had never really played basketball in high school, I did some celebrity basketball things when we were in, even though I wasn't a celebrity, I was just a salesperson at a newspaper. And they picked us for some things there. Like I said, I always try to look at things to give back at. I volunteered. A lot of my basketball coaching stuff was all just volunteer. Again, some of the best times that I remember is JC's. I was aged out. But they did a haunted house. My wife was the chair of, and I helped do that. And we built a beach house in Manistee with not all the proceeds, but some of the proceeds. The proceeds all went to that. And they had some other things that they built, but that was one of the funnest experiences ever. It was for, I think, 4 weekends that we all went and scared people, and we raised money for this beach house. Concession stand, whatever it was. And then one of the other things that I just really, really remember being fun was Standish. Same thing, it was the JC's, believe it or not. And we went out to elderly people's houses, and it was in the fall. We raked leaves, we cleaned gutters, we put their storm doors on, just things that they couldn't do anymore, put away their patio furniture and got them ready for winter. And that was, same thing. I think it was over a 4-weekend period. It wasn't tons of time. It was a few hours here or there, but just volunteered my time. And then some of the later things that I started doing is volunteering for government entities. I was on the Parks Commission, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, the Compensation Commission, and now I am a village trustee. Woo. But again, all things that you don't do for money. You just want to be involved in part of a community, just to make you feel good about yourself. And so a lot of these things I don't even really know where it came from. I think, like I said, just being blessed and that I decided to. And one of the big things that, if anybody out there can tell me, is I just really want to get involved in education reform. It's one of my things right now that I'm pretty passionate about, but I just don't know how really to go about it. I think that schools really need to change. We've been kind of teaching the same way. No slam on teachers, but been teaching the same way for probably 100, 150 years. I mean, ever since the Industrial Revolution, and we kind of lump kids all in, and instead of looking at their strengths or talents or how they learn, we just say, everybody has to learn this way. Everybody has to figure it out. And then we kind of look down on the people who fail, which again, failure is good. That's how we learn. But anyways, if anybody knows of anything like that, I would really, really like to get involved with that. Please tell me some of the stories about things that maybe you've volunteered for long term. Maybe some of the stories of the funnest things that you've ever done in volunteering. Oh yeah, I forgot, we used to I did several of the times picking up trash along the sides of the road for the Adopt a Highway. That was another. I mean, it was just good camaraderie, because every time pretty much that we had a volunteer project like that, we'd go to Pizza Hut and have pizza after. So it was just a good time to be able to interact with other people, get to know some other people. I was part of Habitat for Humanity. That was another very satisfying thing. Not only did I try to procure building supplies and materials for the projects, but also you helped out a family be able to maybe get their first home and have a mortgage that they could afford. It was in a small town, so we only built a house, I think, every 2 years, but it was still fun. It was still enjoyable to go ahead and put those skills to work. Is there anything that you volunteered for a long time, like maybe started when you were a kid and went on through your life? How did you find your volunteer opportunities? Was it because you just wanted to try something new, or was it something that you were extremely, extremely passionate about? Most of my things were just, they kind of fell about, like the Habitat for Humanity thing. My wife and I just went down to a meeting one day and checked it out. And then I had Ben Lyons in one thing where we did several fish fries, and I enjoyed that when we did that. The JCs, we had Aquapalooza, which was a big fundraiser and it was a bunch of bands and bartended, and that was always fun and interesting as well. So like I said, all of the opportunities I had, not only was it giving back and helping raise funds to build better community, a lot of times it was really fun and enjoyable, and you really had a good feeling at the end of it that you'd made a difference, that you had really done things. Again, we had several, I think 7 exchange students, and you didn't get paid for any of that, but you just tried to give them a home and give them an experience. Again, a lot of these things I just did, and unfortunately was not good at establishing great and wonderful relationships. Just did the things and then left it. I mean, there are some good relationships. There was some older people who were in the Kiwanis with me, and even after I was out of it and disbanded, I still would go visit them, usually once every 2 or 3 weeks, just to say hi, just to see how things were going with them. And I actually miss them very much, because it's been 5 or 6 years and they were getting up there in age. So yeah, just maybe relay some of your stories, some things that you can say that really make you feel good about volunteering. And if you don't volunteer, get out and volunteer. Hey, you don't have to give tons of time every single week, but anything that you can do to help make a difference in your community. And I think that you'll find that it really makes you feel good about yourself. When you look at the faces of other people, like those old people that we cleaned up, or elderly people that we cleaned up and helped them get ready, just, they were so happy and that we were there to help, because they couldn't do it anymore. And, maybe they didn't have kids who lived around. But yeah, so get out, find a way, even if it's going to help your neighbor, even if you find somebody in your community who's elderly, get out, volunteer. And so always remember, your smile makes me smile. Be kind, be grateful, be helpful. And until next time, have a great day.